Nice to be with you at home. Hope the turkey is doing well in the oven. We're going to debate later what the best time to eat that turkey is. In the meantime, a lot of news, and welcome to America's News Headquarters. I'm Leland Vittert.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Ebony K. Williams. Topping the news this hour, President Trump keeping up his beef with Chief Justice John Roberts, even complaining about a federal court during his Thanksgiving phone call to members of our military.
And this, former FBI Director James Comey confirming he got a subpoena from House Republicans. Neither of that's James Comey. There's James Comey, who only have a few weeks left to hold hearings. And he's reportedly not the only one. We'll tell you who's on the list.
And rain adding to the misery in Northern California after the state's deadliest and most destructive wildfire ever.
And we begin with this. President Trump continuing his dispute with Chief Justice John Roberts of the United States Supreme Court. Earlier this week, you might remember, the president called the judge who ruled against his asylum policy a, quote, Obama judge. Then Chief Justice John Roberts released a statement yesterday writing, there are no Obama judges or Trump judges, but instead an extraordinary group of dedicated judges. And the president responding on Twitter and continuing his response on Thanksgiving. Making an early morning for Kevin Corke, who is in West Palm Beach, Florida. Hi, Kevin.
Good to be with you. And listen, we all thought it was going to be a nice, quiet, simple holiday, little turkey, little dressing, little stuffing. Not so much. As you pointed out there, Leland, the president very active on Twitter early this morning. Now, for the folks at home, this actually all stems back to his criticism of a district judge by the name of John Tiger, who issued a nationwide injunction effectively halting, at least temporarily, the president's new policy vis-a-vis asylum seeking south of the border. This, of course, all has to do with that huge migrant caravan headed our way. Well, yes, that got the Chief Justice talking about it. Now there's been this back and forth, which we've been talking about all day long. And to be honest, we've actually seen this before. A lower level federal judge, in this case an Obama appointee, making a ruling that effectively thwarts the Trump administration, forcing it now to go through the courts before that policy can take effect. The president called that judge, as you said, an Obama judge. The Chief Justice said this: we don't have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. That independent judiciary is something we should all be thankful for. Okay, so he lays it out pretty clearly, right? However, given the Ninth Circuit's well-earned reputation for being progressive and for frequently ruling against the president, well, he said today it is high time that someone called them out for their activism.
Getting some terrible decisions from the Ninth Circuit, as usual. I don't know if we've ever had a victory in the Ninth Circuit. We have to appeal it. I guess a vast number of their decisions get overturned, generally speaking. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a disgrace, frankly. And essentially, they're legislating. They're saying what to do. Some judge sitting in some location very far away is telling our incredible military and law enforcement what to do, and it's not right, and it's been going on like that for a long time. We have to use some common sense. This Ninth Circuit, everybody knows it. It's totally out of control.
Totally out of control is what the president said. Totally out of control, describing the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Let me share this tweet, Lucky, before I let you go. This from Chairman Chuck Grassley of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He said Chief Justice Roberts rebuked Trump, talking about the president, for a comment he made about a judge's decision on asylum. I don't recall the chief attacking Obama when that president rebuked Alito, as in Justice Alito, during a State of the Union. Clearly a snapshot of the intensity, Lucky, that we continue to have as we watch this issue unfold. And I predict, though it is a vacation week, this is something we'll be talking about probably for some time yet to come.
Yeah.
Leland?
Yeah, intensity on Thanksgiving. Who would have thought? All right, Kevin Corke, West Palm Beach, Florida. Best to you and best to Kristen Brown, your fearless producer as well. Thanks for working, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
All right, we're going to bring in our political panel. Jen Kearns is a GOP strategist and former spokeswoman for California's Republican Party. Jessica Ehrlich is a Democratic strategist. Thank you both, ladies, for joining this Thanksgiving Day.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. All right, Jen, I want to start with you. And certainly we all know that President Trump is not a man to back down. And certainly he's been rewarded politically for that position. But do you think it is wise of the president or politically expedient for him to be going back and forth with such an esteemed member of the court like Justice John Roberts, and a conservative justice at that?
Well, hi, Ebony. Look, no one elected President Donald Trump to go to Washington to tiptoe around the issues or to mince words. Look, I can tell you, being from California, working there for the better part of more than a decade, and even having some campaigns in which we won millions of votes that were later thrown out by the Ninth Circuit, that the Ninth Circuit Court is a joke. And there is a reason that it has earned the nickname the Ninth Circus. The New York Times said in 2010, and this is no conservative publication, the New York Times even said in 2010 that its liberal reputation precedes it. And if you look at some of the cases they've passed and overturned, they agreed with atheists that the phrase "under God" should be removed from the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States of America.
All right, Jen, I
far
can
out of the
appreciate that
mainstream.
point. Yeah, it's certainly a liberal court. I think, Jessica, maybe you would jump in here with that feedback. But is that reputation well earned or maybe unfair from the Ninth Circuit that it is a liberal deemed court? Is that actually in the president's favor, in the sense that it seems to be with this president that he does need some type of foil, whether in this case it's the Ninth Circuit, whether it's Nancy Pelosi, whether it's the mainstream media, right? Something to play against, and that only enhances his popularity with his base.
Well, I think that's actually an incredibly astute statement, and I totally agree with you. He does need that sort of foil when it comes to sort of his policies, that he's being thwarted, that he's overcoming obstacles, that he's out there fighting and championing and doing all these things. I think really Justice Roberts' comment was actually not specifically mentioning the president. It was simply stating what I think, as an attorney, I'm very grateful for, that we do have a very good, strong judiciary that is not partisan, and they're there to uphold the laws of this country, which is very important. And the part of the process, I think, the president likes to always be sort of the underdog in these situations, as you said. And there's a process, whether it's going through the appellate process before the Supreme Court hears cases, that we have for all of our laws. And often the Supreme Court and Justice Roberts have ruled in President Trump's favor, like they did with the Muslim ban. So, it's whatever his issue is at the time. If people don't agree with them, he goes after them.
But Ebony,
sure.
I think it's interesting to point out here, even the subhead here says there are no Obama judges or Trump judges. That is avoiding the reality. So critics want to say that Chief Justice Roberts is right here. But look, the political reality is politicians do appoint judges. And look at the turnout.
And to that point, Jen, there are studies that do show that ideological differences based off of who and what party put someone on the bench can have impact. As much as, Jessica, I completely, empathize with your point that we would like to think that our courts are apolitical and above this partisan divide. But unfortunately, everybody on those courts is human.
Yes.
So to that point, what I want to ask both of you ladies today is to tell me your perspective on what do we do in this situation where it seems that the president's best interest, at least politically speaking, is to raise awareness to this maybe difficult reality that these things do exist when it comes to ideological and partisan things. But it's weighed against the conflict with Justice Roberts' position, which is to keep the court rather pure around this issue, right? And certainly recast the fact that our courts are supposed to be able to be looking at the Constitution and statutes only and keeping their personal beliefs and ideologies out of it. What to make of this type of conflict, ladies? I'll start with you, Jen.
Well, you want to look at a conflict. I think Chief Justice Roberts has created a conflict now within his own self. I would argue that because he has waded into this fight and engaged politically with President Trump on this matter, Justice Roberts may have to recuse himself in the future if the Russian collusion investigation were to go all the way to the Supreme Court, if there's an obstruction of justice case involving President Trump.
Why would he need to recuse himself? As Jessica pointed out, Justice Roberts sided in favor of President Trump's travel ban just at the end of last term.
Well, look, if you look at what the Democrats' main critique of now Justice Kavanaugh was, that he was too emotional, too politically charged in that final speech when he came back during the confirmation hearings. You could now say
Judge Roberts was
that's
emotional?
actually the.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, this is the opposite of what we just saw from Justice Roberts. I mean, and he was actually did not mention the president by name, and he didn't mention any comment by the president in his remarks.
He didn't have to. Everybody in the room knows exactly what he was talking about. And look, it's one thing for the president to wade into politics. That is his job on a daily basis. But if the court is as strong as Chief Justice Roberts says it is, the court should be able to survive on its own. It is in its own right a branch of the government. I don't think he should have waded in on this. It makes him look like this issue was really beneath him to do so.
He's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and it is his job and his duty to make sure that his judges are being represented properly and are being put forth, because he is the head of a co-equal branch of the federal government. We have three branches. We have Congress, we have the branch that is the president's executive office, and we have the judiciary.
Jessica, is Chief Justice Roberts responsible, in your view, to make sure that the reputation of all of our country's judges is beyond reproach?
Yes.
And they can do so, by way of the decisions they deliver from the bench. He shouldn't have waded into the political issue. He's a judge. This was beneath him. Again, it's President Trump's right to do that. This is the arena he's in. This is the arena he's chosen to be in. I think Justice Roberts should have remained quiet on this issue and proceeded to represent the court through their decisions. And if you ask some judges across the country, they would agree with that, that they should have just let their decisions speak for themselves. If the court is truly independent, that's what Justice Roberts would have done.
Jen, Jessica, I am so excited to say that both of you ladies will be joining us later on in the show as we will continue to talk the news of the day. But thank you both. Sit tight. We'll be back with you shortly.
Saudi Arabia warning that blaming its crown prince for the death of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi would cross, quote, a red line. How about that? But the CIA has reportedly already concluded that the crown prince ordered the killing. The Saudis, as you might have heard, deny that. But the fallout has already started, with at least one country stopping sales of military equipment to the kingdom over the columnist's murder. Benjamin Hall live in London. Good evening, Benjamin.
Good evening, Leland. Ever since Tuesday, when President Trump made his statement on Khashoggi, he's been laying out why the relationship with Saudi Arabia is so important. Everything from national security to the fight against Iran, to the economy, to jobs, to oil prices. Well, today he also spoke at length about this, and he also talked about Khashoggi and Khashoggi's killing specifically, saying this.
I don't know if anyone's going to be able to conclude that the crown prince did it. Whether he did or whether he didn't, he denies it vehemently. His father denies it, the king, vehemently. The CIA doesn't say they did it. They do point out certain things, and in pointing out those things, you can conclude that maybe he did or maybe he didn't.
Encouraged by President Trump's support, Saudi Arabia has also spoken out today for the first time since the statement, warning that criticism of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is now a red line. Foreign Minister there saying on Wednesday that calls for the Crown Prince to be held accountable for the killing would not be tolerated. Yesterday, General Mattis also commented, saying, quote, "Presidents don't always get the freedom to work with unblemished partners in all things. We're not going to apologize for our human rights stance, nor are we going to apologize for working with Saudi Arabia when it's necessary for the good of innocent people who are in trouble." There are, however, already repercussions for Saudi Arabia over Khashoggi's murder. Today, Denmark and Finland announced they would be halting exports of military equipment to Saudi Arabia because of Khashoggi's murder, but also because of the worsening situation in Yemen. And they follow Germany in doing so. Well, now the country that has been most vocal in their opposition to all this, Turkey, have raised the possibility that their president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, could perhaps meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the upcoming G20 summit in Buenos Aires later this month. And it's hoped, perhaps, that the two countries might forge a path forward through this. And President Trump has also cited Iran as one of the major reasons that the relationship with Saudi Arabia is important. And just today, a top Iranian general said that improved Iranian missiles now had the capability to strike all U.S. bases from Afghanistan to Qatar to UAE and aircraft carriers, perhaps justifying President Trump's decision. Leland?
All right. Ben Hall in London. Ben, thank you. We bring in Dan Hoffman, former CIA station chief, Fox News foreign affairs contributor. Boy, pretty rich from the Saudis to go from murdering this guy to denying it to now saying it was a rogue operation to now saying if you blame the prince, it's a red line.
Yeah, first, special thanks to our public servants here in the United States and overseas for defending our freedom. There's no question that the Saudi conduct in the Yemeni war, as well as the murder of Khashoggi, has really strained our relationship, our bilateral relationship, arguably more than ever in our history.
What do you make, though, of the arrogance of this regime that is clearly sort of under immense international pressure? The U.S. gives them a way out. We saw President Trump there at Mar-a-Lago, and now they're coming back with going, any attempt to blame us or blame the Crown Prince is a red line. They must feel like they have the upper hand.
Yeah, well, I think that that's to be expected, you know, and I think that they understand that there's pressure in the Congress. It's hard to bring the Democrats and Republicans together, but the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has done that. There's bipartisan outrage and interest in doing something about it. But what I would also highlight is historically there's been a real tension for integrating human rights into our foreign policy. You look back at Secretary Kissinger, had issues with the Congress. He was more interested in realpolitik, and the Congress was promoting human rights. We utterly failed to deal with the human rights abuse in Rwanda, where there was genocide. And I can tell you in Pakistan, they were a major ally of ours while President Musharraf implemented martial law. So we deal with human rights, and I think it's important rather than I think it's important for us to acknowledge.
Let's get this to the sort of in a broader sense. Obviously, you can't pick who your friends are going to be in the world, or you can't necessarily tell your friends always what they're going to do. Ben Hall made an interesting point that there's a chance that the president of Turkey and MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, are going to meet at the G20 summit. The Turks for so long were putting out all of these leaks with pictures of their surveillance outside the consulate. We kept hearing about all of these tapes that they had. Evidently, the head of the CIA has listened to some of these tapes. And now the Turks have gone totally silent here. What do you make of that?
Well, they're letting this play out, and President Erdogan is doing it in part for his own domestic political reasons. He has a lot of support from the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's really a split within the Sunni, within the Sunnis. They're the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia and Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey. And so I think he's trying to get maximum benefit from that. And for us in the United States, as General Mattis said, it's about balancing our values and promoting our values and human rights against those national security, economic, and political interests. And rather, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that those human rights abuses are taking place, but at the same time, as well, acknowledge that we've got competing interests. At times it makes it extraordinarily challenging. Yeah,
President Trump sort of made the point, if these are the standards, then who can we be friends or allies with? Mr. Hoffman, appreciate it. You make a good point. There are so many men and women, both in uniform and not, around the world standing watch today. Our thanks to them and to you for your service, sir.
Thanks.
All the best. All right. Anti-terror forces in London have busted a man that they say is a would-be bomber. Now in
a vacant home in London. Ryan Chilcote reporting live from London. Ryan?
Counterterrorism police swooped into a home in North London, finding what they believe are 2 homemade bombs after they got a tip from some construction workers in the apartment. Just after that, they then arrested one man, 48 years old, though they cautioned that they do not believe he has any links to any terrorist organizations. Now, that arrest this morning came just as MI5, that's the UK's domestic spy agency, made a very rare admission to politicians here that they should have placed Salman Abedi, the terrorist who killed 22 people last May at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, under closer surveillance before he carried out that attack. Had they been watching more carefully, they say, they might have picked up on the trips he made to his home country of Libya in the lead up to that bombing. And they say that is just one of the policing issues they've identified.
Taking these issues together, we've concluded that there were a number of failures in the handling of Salman Abedi's case. It's impossible to say whether any of these, if any of these had not happened, that the devastating attack of the 22nd of May could have been prevented. But we can say that as a result of the failings, potential opportunities to prevent it were missed.
Politicians have been studying all of the terrorist attacks that took place in this country in 2017. Why? Well, last year was the deadliest year when it comes to terrorist attacks since 2005, 13 years ago. Obviously, they want to see what they could have done better to prevent attacks in the future. Interesting, at that hearing today, politicians also singled out Facebook and Google, saying they too could do more to police online content. In fact, they say that Manchester bombing may have learned to make his bombs by watching online videos. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Leland?
All right, an American missionary trying to bring religion to a lost civilization is instead wound up murdered. A tribe cut off from the rest of the world, killing him in a bloody bow and arrow attack. Now officials are trying to figure out how to recover the victim's body from that remote island without winding up dead or attacked themselves. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Amy Kellogg live on this. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Leland. Well, the North Sentinelese are not just remote, but they are possibly the most isolated tribe in the entire world, and they are known for attacking with arrows anyone who approaches them. Basically, little to nothing is known about their language, Leland. So negotiating with them about retrieving the body or conducting a murder investigation is going to be very difficult indeed. Now, the island is part of the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago. When the tsunamis hit the Indian Ocean in 2004, the Sentinelese shot arrows at Indian Air Force rescue helicopters. So they seem to relish their isolation, or apparently they know nothing else. The hunter-gatherer tribe has lived there for thousands of years. Apparently, with India, whose jurisdiction they fall under, now having a pretty much hands-off policy, no one visits them. Access is terribly restricted. Food drop-offs are performed from a distance. John Allen Chow, a graduate of Oral Roberts University, was a great adventurer and a missionary, and he knew the risk of going to this island, but he really for a long time wanted to bring the gospel to the North Sentinelese. He paid some fishermen to take him quite close to the island, at which point he went the final stretch alone in a kayak. He reportedly said to them as he approached, quote, "My name is John, I love you, Jesus loves you." The tribesmen at that point chased him away with arrows, but bound and determined, the next day, November 17th, Chow returned bearing gifts, including fish, and at that point, he was killed. Now, Leland, it is believed that he was killed by an arrow or arrows, but frankly, the cause of death cannot be determined until and if that body is retrieved. Right now, the police in the area and the rest of the world are really going off the account of the fishermen who were the ones who facilitated this ill-fated trip of this American missionary to the most isolated and frankly quite dangerous place in the world. Leland.
Amy Kellogg in Milan. Amy, thank you. Pretty amazing. Now the Indians are looking at charges against those fishermen. The family, though, says, look, he says, that's why our son went there. He went there to spread the gospel. We don't want to see anyone charged. It'd be unbelievable to see how this turns out.
Oh, absolutely. Certainly praying for that family indeed. James Comey. Former FBI Director James Comey responding to a subpoena from House Republicans for a closed-door interview. Lauren Blanchard is live in Washington with the latest. Lauren.
Ebony, James Comey tweeting this morning confirming he's received the subpoena, adding, quote, "I will resist a closed door thing because I've seen enough of their selective leaking and distortion. Let's have a hearing and invite everyone to see." Comey's attorney issuing a statement today questioning the political nature of the last-minute subpoenas, saying in part, the subpoena issued yesterday represents an abusive process, a divergence from House rules, and its presumption of transparency. Democrats have long wanted any questioning about the 2016 presidential election and the FBI and DOJ's decisions during that time to be in full view. Comey has offered to testify before only as long as it was open. Republicans, including the chairman of the committee, Republican Bob Goodlatte, have insisted that it be closed door. However, the timing of the subpoenas has others questioning the Republicans' last-minute demands.
The idea that the Republicans, took a pretty good hit in the midterms a few weeks ago, and one of the reasons was that they were seen as not sufficiently conducting their oversight function, seems like a bad move both politically and legally.
Chairman Goodlatte is retiring, and Democrats will soon control the House Judiciary Committee. These subpoenas would be his final act as chairman to make Comey and Loretta Lynch, appear in a closed-door session. The current top Democrat on the committee, Jerry Nadler, has reportedly said it's unfortunate that the outgoing majority was resorting to these tactics. Comey's attorney confirmed the FBI director has been asked to appear on December 3rd, while Lynch reportedly has been asked to appear December 4th. Ebony?
Thank you, Lauren. Leland?
All right, President Trump's acting attorney general now facing more controversy. A liberal watchdog group filing complaints against Matt Whitaker, saying he may have violated rules about political activities of federal employees. Ellison Barber following this story, also from Washington. Hi, Ellison.
Hey, Leland, that group, American Oversight, says the Office of Special Counsel opened a case file to look at acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker and potential violations of the Hatch Act. Fox News reached out to OSC and the Department of Justice, but did not immediately hear back. The Hatch Act, as many people already know, puts limits on the sort of political activities that federal workers can engage in. Whitaker ran for Senate in 2014. His 2014 Senate campaign committee is reportedly still active, and according to FEC filings, it received a total of $8,800 from 4 individual contributors in January and February of this year. Mr. Whitaker was working for the federal government at that time. In a letter to the Office of Special Counsel, the watchdog requested an investigation into the contributions.
After 2 years of being completely dormant, and only after he joined Jeff Sessions' office as chief of staff, he started receiving a cluster of contributions from former clients of his when he was a lobbyist in Iowa. It appears to violate the black letter law of the Hatch Act.
American Oversight says they've asked at least 3 different federal offices to look into Whitaker. Whitaker's appointment as acting AG is controversial. Democrats and even some Republicans take issue with previous statements he made criticizing the special counsel's Russia probe. Democrats say President Trump fired former Attorney General Jeff Sessions and replaced him with Whitaker to try and derail the Russia probe. President Trump has repeatedly defended his pick for acting AG, and he did so again this morning in Florida.
Once I choose somebody, they always go through hell. But Matt Whitaker is a highly respected man. The Justice Department respects him tremendously. I've spoken to a lot of people. He's doing a great job. Everybody tells me that.
The executive director of American Oversight served as senior counsel focusing on oversight and transparency issues at the Department of State under the Obama administration. But Leland, the group says they are nonpartisan.
All right, we'll follow it. Ellison Barber. Ellison, thank you. Ebony's got more.
Yes, with more, we're bringing in John Lauro. John's a former federal prosecutor. Happy Thanksgiving, John. Thanks for joining.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Okay, so Jim Comey, we heard 2 incredibly detailed reports there, John, about all that's leading up to this. It started off with the report saying, from Lauren Blanchard, saying that Comey is opposed to the closed-door meeting because he's concerned with leaks. Now, some might say Jim Comey's a fine one to talk about leaks. But to that point, what is your take and your reaction as to why Jim Comey, he is so insistent that this hearing be public and be open?
Well, I think for the reasons he said, and that is he doesn't want any leaks. He wants it to be exposed to the public so everybody can see. And frankly, I think it would be to the advantage of the committee to hold public hearings so that all Americans can see what the testimony is and what the answers are. There's some still
John, what about
hard questions out there.
What about the other side of what that publicness can cause? And I appreciate your point about transparency, but some would say that the publicness, the cameras of it all, and again, the messenger, I think, matters here. The fact that it is James Comey asking for this public display when many would say he was the most kind of media visible, well-known FBI director since Hoover. Is this just James Comey wanting more cameras in his face and another opportunity to showboat?
Absolutely, and he's been engaging in leaks from day one and doing things that I think he still has to answer for. But all the more reason for the public to be able to see what these answers are. And I think he's going to be on the hot seat. It seems to me that most people would like to see what he has to say.
But if, let's say, the Senate committee does not agree to the public nature of what James Comey is wanting, would you recommend that the former FBI director agree to the closed-door setting? Is the risk of leaks and the other things he says he's concerned about, is it worth avoiding getting his voice on the record, so to speak, on this issue?
Well, let's make it clear. He doesn't have a choice. He's under subpoena. So he's going to be required to show up at the hearing. And if they want to keep it private, they keep it private. But it just seems to me that all of us would like to get some answers. And so far, he hasn't provided them. And the only way we're all going to see is if it's done in public.
All right. Well, I certainly think all Americans want more answers from James Comey as this all plays out. John, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Including what happened at that meeting between Loretta Lynch and President Clinton.
Yes, we're all waiting with bated breath on that one too, John. Thank you so much. Leland.
All right, forecasters say heavy rains in parts of Northern California could cause flash flooding and mudslides in areas where a wildfire burned away all the plants and trees. Jeff Paul live from Chico, California, where we are now seeing the best in humanity after such tragedy. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, Leland. And it is just amazing to be in here. Look at all these people, some of these people traveling as far as 16 hours away just to be a part of this Thanksgiving dinner that's being served up over here. They've got a lot of the traditional dishes. They've spent all morning getting all the food ready to serve the folks who've been impacted by the Camp Fire. 13,000 homes destroyed in this fire. So you can imagine there's a lot of people that need a place for Thanksgiving. These folks out here just trying to give them some sort of slice of that holiday. We spoke with one of the chefs involved, and he said he gets more out of it than just serving food. He says part of it is to send a message.
It's that compassion and that, you know, the big heartfelt thing that is kind of giving back. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but disasters like this do bring people very close together, communities together. And I think this just shows it.
What's that? It's all through hot turkey.
Okay. Now, while they continue to serve Thanksgiving dinner into the night, we should also mention that in Paradise, California, where this campfire burned, lots of search and recovery crews still up there. We're told around 800 people. The death toll there hovering around 83 people. The number of unaccounted dropping significantly more than 300, standing right now at 563. And first responders are hoping to get that number further and further down. Some of those firefighters tell us that, yes, it is difficult being away from family. Yes, it is difficult seeing so much devastation, but they say of all days, today, this is the place they want to be. It makes them so very thankful to be here to see all the things they have compared to all the loss that these people have suffered. Leland?
Well put, and we are thankful for their service as well. Jeff Paul, Chico, California. Jeff, thanks. Wow. And you think about now, fire season in California is a whole year. So these firefighters who are coming off working days straight now are going right back into it.
And serving. It's truly remarkable. The best of humanity, as you said, Leland. There's word President Trump's lawyers were actually setting up a meeting between the president and special counsel Robert Mueller.
Well, word ahead, what we're learning about why that meeting never happened. We're going to bring back our political panel for a debate.
And speaking of debates, the big question looming, what time is too early to chow down on Thanksgiving Day? I assure